Just a second. All right. Good evening, everybody. Tonight I'm going to talk about just some of the latest things that have come about post-viral syndrome, some generalizations. I've also been asked to talk a little bit about endothelial dysfunction, but I don't get into the depth that Dr. Halasa does. We'll go over some new stuff that's out there. This is not medical advice. I'm just trying to give you guys some information, an update on some of the top states. I'm in Maryland and we have the double hump. So we look like kind of what the US looks like. I just wanted to point out that New York does look like it's hit herd immunity because it's been staying down. So across the state, there's 200 to 400 cases per day, and that's about the same as New Jersey. Florida, remember, and Texas, they all got their peak. California, when they reopened, and they started having lax reopening measures, and they're all seeing their peak, but the peaks seem to be over, and everything's coming down. And notice that New York didn't have another peak. So in my mind, if New York gets another peak, that's a second wave. If anybody wants to look at any of the patterns for their state, it's on this map. Notice Hawaii has got an upblip, and they actually think that that's from the native Hawaiians having large family gatherings. Again, they're Pacific Asians, so they have a higher density of ACE2 receptors, and there's a huge obesity problem, so they're at high risk, and apparently they've been gathering in large groups as they usually do over the course of the summer, and that's why you're having all the blips. All right, so what I'm going to cover tonight is the bradykinin storm and endothelial dysfunction, look at some of the long-term consequences of COVID-19, a couple cases of reinfection, and I have one slide on losartan for pulmonary fibrosis. The bradykinin storm and the endothelial dysfunction, we'll get a little bit into mechanism, and then we'll get into some numbers with the long-term consequences of COVID. But first of all, something on genetics. So I'm happy to report to you that this is the first major deletion that they've found that affects the most important protein in terms of pathogenicity. So it's called NSP1, and there can be 2 or 3 amino acids right here. So they could be KS or the KSF, and if you drop those amino acids, then this is not going to interfere with alpha interferon as well as the wild type. So that's the best thing we've had in mutations, because most all of them have been causing something worse. They looked at 17,000 genomes, and they didn't say how many they found this in, but it was enough for them to report. So now I'm going to go on to the bradykinin storm, and we'll talk a little bit about that. They came out with a paper using the Summit supercomputer at the Oak Ridge National Lab in Tennessee. This is the second fastest computer in the world, and they used it to look at over 40,000 genes from 17,000 genetic samples to try to see if they could figure out what was going on with COVID-19. So it took them about a week to analyze about 2.5 billion genetic combinations. So that was all interesting in terms of the amount of work that computer did. And they looked at all kinds of things. When they were looking at the data,